In today's training, I want to walk you through a 4-stage approach to calm a busy mind. This is an insight and snapshot into one of our private trainings we did for our clients, walking through that middle gap between nutrition and training. We think about improving health, yet we don't tackle the mind. And if you're in a place where you're trying to improve your sleep quality, your routines, your ability to switch off, your ability to switch on and be productive throughout the day, being able to really tackle this busyness and this mental chatter that's become so normal in today's world is, I think, a superpower. And being able to really take control of your attention and that scattered brain is something that, for me personally, I hold very highly. And this is a framework that I've been really building through with our clients over a period of time. And I want to share it with you. So throughout this training, I want to share with you a small visual. And if you're listening to this on our podcast rather than YouTube or in the group, the big thing I want to share with you is this. You can visualize a square. And at the bottom, we've got stillness. On the sides, we have consumption on one side, creation on the other, and then momentum at the top. So what I want to do is walk you through what those really mean and how this can become an equation that you can really lean back on when you notice that you're getting a little bit busy, a little bit frantic, a little bit anxious, whatever else might be coming through. So as I mentioned, we work with hundreds of busy professionals and business owners that are in a spot where they feel like their body's not responding like it used to. They're not digesting foods as well. They're not able to wind down. They're not able to focus. And being able to really address nutrition and training is a big part of this, but being able to really address the 6 inches between our ears is an even bigger part of it. And this is really where we go. So the first part I want to address is stillness, really looking at the space of what is stillness and how the hell is it actually effective. The big part that I want to address is I'm going to bring up this little quote, which I really, really like. Where we go? Here. When we don't give time to stop in the day, there will be too many reasons to be busy, right? It's the classic sharpen the axe before you start swinging. So many of us are in a spot where we're so rushed that we don't take that time to reflect on what's a tweak, refinement on how we could move forward better. And the amount of times I've done this where I don't structure my day and I run into the first meeting and I feel like I'm just meeting after meeting after meeting or problem after problem after problem. And I don't take that time to hone in on what's my key objective, that one thing that I need to get done today to move forward. And that's where we start to look at busyness really truly being the lowest form of significance. It's an area where we feel good because we're busy. Overall, subjectively, we feel better because we're busy, but we're not productive and we can't move forward. And if you're in a spot where either one, you feel that you're constantly stressed and it's impacting your physical health, or two, it's in a place where you're constantly frustrated of not being able to move forward in your particular department, company, or business. The big part with stillness is it's something that the people that really truly focus on productivity above everything else, outcomes above everything else, are the ones that take more time to think, more time to plan, to strategize, to refine before they take that first step. And being able to give yourself that ability to tackle a busy mind and get to a place that you're able to hone into where your mind is paying attention, that's truly a big one. So what I'm trying to look at is getting you to a point of appreciating white space in your calendar. The classic 80-20 rule here applies big time, where 20% of your day, or probably less, actually moves you forward. So how do we eliminate the 80%? We think of it through our thinking time, through that white space, through preparing our day in a way that's not just reactive to what comes through the door. So many of us, and I promise you, I've seen many calendars and many emails of how we run our days based on the requests that come into us rather than strategically getting an awareness of where we place those in our day to answer questions or be available for our team, and where we focus on the key drivers to move that company or division or project forward. So really just getting to a point of putting you in this mindset of building that platform and awareness of stillness. If we can appreciate that just as much, if not more than busyness, then and only then do we get to a place that we can actually quieten that brain, because a lot of the time we just attach our own self-worth to I must be busy or I'm not important or I don't have enough going on, to the point that I was down at my barber the other day and he said, "So how's today? Is it busy?" And you feel like you have to say yes, because if you say no, what the hell are you doing with your day? Just appreciating white space, getting to a point that busy is not the significance you're after, but rather output, productivity, or even just space can really be a big shift. All right. So hopefully I haven't switched you off, because this is a really, really key part that most of us simply ignore. Once we've got the stillness part, we now have a platform in place. We can now start to look at this equation. And this for me has been very helpful at how I approach my own mentality around feeling busy, around feeling like I'm really creating really good quality work, and being able to switch off at the end of the day. So it's very much a ratio between consumption and creation that we're looking at here. And where I want to start is really this awareness of we don't have a lack of information, we have a lack of attention. And what we're trying to look at here is some version of auditing our time and attention spent on devices. So whether that be social media, whether that be TV, whether that be the news, whether that be simply those channels that distract our brain, make things more chaotic and busy than they need to be, versus where are those areas that really allow us to be more focused on our mental diet. So we focus on our physical diet, what we're eating, what we're consuming, but what are we consuming mentally? What are we reading, digesting, and how is that shaping our perspective and what we see in the world, right? If I'm constantly consuming negative or reactive or gossipy crap, then I'm going to notice that I'm projecting that into the world. I'm seeing more of that around me. If I'm in a spot where I'm really tackling certain topics, or I'm going deep into my own personal development, or I'm going deeper into health, like listening or watching this podcast, you're in a spot where you find all these opportunities to improve your health and performance, to get to a point that you can feel more and more in tune with your body. I think that's really, really important. What are you consuming and how is it changing your outlook? Because I promise you it is. And if you're not managing that mental diet, well, there's no point even looking at the physical one. We're going to notice that that's going to be getting worse. Being able to really look at these in conjunction with each other and knowing that I come from nutrition space, that's a pretty big claim, right? Nutrition and our physical diet and our mental diet really need to coincide, because if we try to develop physically without developing mentally, then we're leaving such a large portion of any sort of change that we're going to make. We're leaving it behind, or what we'll see is we'll make a change, we'll just revert back to what we're doing because we didn't actually change the habits and thought process deeper down. So what are you consuming mentally? What's coming in and how's that changing your perspective? So that's our one side, we're looking at consumption. Once we've got that right, we can now look at creation. And I think this is a really, really important one. I'll bring up a brief quote here, which is, we don't lose our creativity, but we learn habits which stop it from emerging. And I think it's just a really nice way to look at really this output equation of, most of us have probably heard some version of quote that's usually being fairly unhelpful to our development, that anything over 30, 35 is fairly ingrained, right? This is our way of life. This is now how we operate. And it's very hard for us to learn new things. But that's only if we don't continue to work on it, right? Like everything else, if you don't use it, you lose it. And being able to really dive into certain creative endeavors, whether that be your work, it's maybe coding or painting or presenting or teaching in some form, or maybe it's outside of work where it's pottery or it's knitting or it's gardening or it's music, right? These areas of personal expression and creativity really become a space where you get that brain lighting up in so many different ways. And it's one of the best ways to keep that neuroplasticity alive, to get to a point of learning new things, of keeping the brain sharp. And every time I talk to people that are really optimizing towards 80, which is a big concept in our world, it's not about the 30-day diet, it's about how this looks for the second half of your life, that 20, 30, 40 years on. And getting to a spot where we're really looking after our mental cognition, our focus and sharpness, not just how we feel physically. Now, I'm a very strong believer of that. I want to make sure my brain's still sharp at 82. So getting to a place that we're really using that brain in different and novel ways to keep all of those brain centers working is not only a nice way to balance out this consumption versus output equation to really quieten the mind and allow the body recovery and general tranquility of the brain improve, it's also that long-term development and training of the brain that I really am a fan of. So what we're looking at here is really that ability to look at what are those things that I'm doing and how often am I doing? Because if I asked you last time you added in some version of very intentional creation or creativity into your life, unless it's part of your work, and I'm going to assume that's probably something that you really are passionate about, outside of those equations, we tend to not fit our stuff into the day very often. When was the last time you booked in time to do some painting? When was the last time that you really got into a good music session and started looking at, breaking this down more regularly? More times than not, it's something that we let slide very quickly because the busyness of life takes over, right? So all the more reason to anchor us back into our day and fill our cup. When we're able to really express that creativity, you'll notice that that brain is a lot quieter. It's a lot more content. It's a lot more calm. Really, really cool spot to get to. And I think simply looking at that as an equation of, well, I'm consuming all these things. There's all of these inputs, but what's my output? What's my expression here? How am I able to develop this in a certain way? And in the same way that I consume certain podcasts and certain trainings and certain articles that allow me to show up on these podcasts, YouTube clips, and present what I'm working on and developing and coaching clients through, this is my personal outlet, right? This is a place that really allows me to solidify a level of what have I learned and how do I teach it? And how do I add my own personal twist on it? In a lot of ways, how do I simplify it down, make it more applicable, more relevant to my audience? That becomes something that I truly enjoy, and hence why I've done it every single week for about a decade, is getting to a place where simply I'm continuing to have this output equation that balances out my input. And I read a lot of stuff. I consume a lot of stuff to really dive into the interests that I find valuable, and then being able to present in a way that hopefully you find valuable also. So what we've gone through so far, just to recap, is we're looking at stillness as the base. If we're simply glorifying busyness, then nothing's going to change because that's simply what we're after. Once we've got that right, we can start to have this discussion of, are we balancing out our consumption with creation? And when we do so, we start to feel the brain is a lot more calm. We feel a lot more productive, a lot more intentional throughout the day. And this gets to my favorite, which is momentum. And momentum for me can be broken down into a simple equation, which is deep work minus distraction equals momentum. And I want to be upfront here. If your equation of this is anything more than zero, you're already Superman, right? Getting to a place, also women, getting to a place where you're able to intentionally block out portions of your week where you have very intentional deep work tasks that you need to complete. It's writing a book. It's developing a certain project or presentation. It's building out a new marketing campaign. Whatever that thing and industry component is that you're working on, it's something that allows you to turn off all devices and just lock in and focus for 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours. And being able to get to that spot that you're actually able to communicate to the people around you, that you're able to get to that place of deep flow is a very, very rare thing. And I think it's a skill that, again, when you don't use it, you lose it. Getting to a place of flow, I think, is more natural than people realize, but is the notifications and general distractions that continue to increase, it just becomes harder and harder to find. And this is where we find that opportunity to, I guess, present that busyness is not an external thing, it's an internal state. And when we're able to calm the mind and look at this personal equation that we're presenting to you, it allows you to look at, well, what are my inputs, what are my outputs, and where am I the problem? Because until you take ownership of how you can continue to dive into every fire and have that chipmunk brain that continues to find a new thing to focus on, we start to notice how much we're the problem. And I'll give you an example. I was talking to Mandy, who's our head clinical nutritionist inside the program. She's absolutely walking encyclopedia and generally awesome human. But what she's found with herself, now that she's transitioning in a couple roles here, is that she gets to Thursday and she's topped herself up with all of these different things that she needs to do. And then Thursday tends to be a very scattered day if it's not intentional, right? We end up doing more and more stuff. And then when we get to Thursday, we find that we do a little bit over here, and we start to multitask to a level that really nothing gets done, yet we feel like we've been running around all day. And I'm just as guilty as her in this space. And Thursdayitis is what she called it. But it's very common to get to that Wednesday, Thursday, and feel like we're in a spot where we're starting to really feel that the attention cup is full, and we keep trying to pull more in. We keep trying to sip in, but we haven't blown out, right? At some point, we have to... And if you're not intentionally placing that level of consolidation of your brain, that very intentional focus back to where am I placing my attention, training that brain to focus on one key thing, like this video, 6 minutes in, being in a spot where we're able to really get it back into a flow is a very intentional focus. So being able to find that momentum aspect is something that for me is a continual pursuit. And I think it becomes a very nice way to look at finding true flow and fulfillment in your work again, or outside of work. It doesn't truly have to be work, but it depends on what that vehicle might be. Now, the biggest part of that first is we're looking at this space, and I've got a really lovely quote in here, which is, time freedom means the ability to control one's own time and schedule. Now, we're not going to get to a place that we're able to control every single minute of every single day, potentially, but it may be something that we can control that 1 hour that is for us. And what do we place on that time? Because I know for me, and probably for you, if we say we're going to do something and then things go over and things are busy and something else happens and we don't do that thing for us, that's where we truly get very frustrated, right? That's where for me, I'm like, damn it, I didn't create that time for me. I didn't follow through on what I said I would do. And I've done big trainings on this before around that, how that really digs into your confidence. But getting to a spot that you're able to really build your day onto an actual calendar, right? You've got your work projects, you've got your clients you show up to, you've got those meetings that you attend. And you'll show up to them regardless of whether you've had lunch, whether you've gone for a walk. No matter what's happening, you'll drop everything and you'll show up for them because it's a meeting, it's work, whatever. But when you block something in for you for like lunch or for a walk or for a workout, the amount of times that we push that because something went over, something else happened, we were busy, that can wait. It shows how much more emphasis we put in showing up for others than we do showing up for ourselves. And this is where we really anchor back to one of my favorite topics of being able to really create that level of self-compassion around, well, I need to etch this in for me so I can show up for others. If I want that ripple effect to really show up as my best, I need to be pouring into me because I can't just pour from an empty cup. So getting to that point of time freedom really first comes from a place of personal respect, being able to block in those times and then really following through on what we said we would do. When you do that with the workout, when you do that with your ability to intentionally create your time for you, you start to get to a place that you can start to build back a level of intentional work versus reactive work. And that's what creates momentum, right? And for me, it's been a big game changer. We work with a ton of executives and business owners and people that have no one to answer to. Therefore, they're their own worst enemy. And I'm in that spot too, right? Getting into a spot that whether I work out today or whether I don't is completely up to me. Nobody else even knows, but I know. And being able to really place that personal respect, that personal confidence in myself around those small promises and being able to build that into my time blocks and then being able to build that into my time freedom to then build it into that momentum equation of the day truly makes a massive difference to the busyness of my mind, the ability to be able to pat myself on the back for a job well done, for my ability to manage that mental chatter when days do get pretty frantic and there's lots of things going on and things go sideways. I'm still anchoring those things for myself. And for you, you've just got to ask, well, how many times have I let that one thing slide? Is it the workout? Is it lunch? Is it the ability to just, not start meetings until 9 a.m. in the morning, whatever it might be? Really getting back to a place of what's that intentional thing in your day, in your week that needs to shift to make sure you fit you back in? Where do you keep getting pushed off the priority list? And I think this general equation is something that's made a huge difference in my life around really feeling good about myself, feeling like I'm moving forward and being able to quieten a busy mind. So it's not a small, here's your 3 quick tips to breathe differently. I think it's more of an overall lifestyle design discussion. And by no means am I saying the breathing is not a big part of this. We are a big fan of those intentional focus points like breath work, that pause throughout the day. But I think sometimes if we're continuing to need to come back to our breath because we're being reactive, because we're being stressed, because we're being busy, sometimes we need to zoom out, right? Find the root cause. And this is where this equation, start with stillness, look at that ratio of consumption to creation, and really find a way to build momentum back into your day. That really becomes a spot where I've seen some huge changes. This is where coaching really comes in because it's not just myopically nutrition training. It's this bigger picture of, well, why the hell did that happen in the first place? How do we get back to fitting you back in your day, being intentional around where your attention is focused and what are you allowing into your brain that's shaping the world around you, shaping your perspective and removing that word busy and replacing it with something more productive, more intentional. So a bit of a different training today, team, but it's the glue that holds everything together. If we don't tackle the mind, if we don't look at that awareness of how we approach every day and sometimes how we become our own worst enemy because it's so reactive, that we miss the whole point entirely. So I hope this is a training that keeps you thinking over the weekend or through the week and just seeing those small opportunities for pause, for calm, for a better structuring of our day. And I think we can make a big difference. So I hope you enjoyed it. Love to get your feedback in any way. You can send that through and we'll see you again next week. See ya.